Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going to be looking at corporate spinoffs.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so, when a huge company decides to kind of let one of its businesses,
Like set it free.
yeah, exactly, set it free, go off on its own, and make its own way in the world.
Right, like a little birdie leaving the nest.
Exactly. But we're not looking at just any spinoffs. We are specifically honing in on the ones
The
that,
ones that made it big.
yeah, the ones that became these huge successes. And we've got a whole stack of articles here from McKinsey, Quarters, Managee, even Fortune magazine.
Wow, so we've got a lot to dig into.
Oh yeah, tons to dig into, and I think you might be surprised by some of the names on this list.
Really? Like what?
We're going to get into it in a bit, but I have a feeling you probably use some of these spin-offs every day without even realizing it.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and luckily we have an expert here to help us kind of connect all the dots and really figure out what makes these spin-offs tick.
Well, I'm excited to dig in. You know what I think is interesting is that we often think of spin-offs as like corporate divorces, right? Like it's a messy breakup.
Right, lots of drama.
Exactly. But the thing is, the ones that are really successful, they're more like strategic launches.
Okay, so it's not just about splitting up.
Right. It's not just about breaking up. It's about setting up both companies for a win.
So it's a win-win. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah, a win-win situation.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit more, because one of the things that the McKinsey research really hammered home was the idea of revenue growth being the make or break factor for a successful spinoff.
Right. So it can't just be a separation.
Exactly. It can't just be, okay, you go your way, I'll go mine.
Right. Right. They both need to have a plan for growth.
Right. They need a clear path forward to grow independently. So why is that so crucial?
Well, think about it from an investor's perspective. Investors are looking for potential, right?
Of course, yeah, they want to see their money grow.
Exactly. They want to see that this newly independent company can stand on its own 2 feet.
Right, like it's a viable business.
Exactly. And that it can actually generate increasing revenue.
It's got to be sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. And, that signals to investors that this wasn't just a way to get rid of some struggling business unit.
Right, like they weren't just trying to dump it off.
Exactly. It was a calculated move to unlock value.
So it's not just a breakup, it's a whole new beginning.
With its own growth strategy.
Yeah, exactly, a whole new chapter.
And, McKinsey found that the spinoffs that really outperformed, they were the ones that focused on aggressive revenue growth.
So not just growth, but like going all in on growth.
Exactly, whether through expanding into new markets or developing innovative products.
So they have to be proactive.
Yeah, exactly. They have to be hungry for growth.
And the articles highlighted some really great examples of this. One that comes to mind is there was this technology services provider.
Okay.
And they spun off their software subsidiary.
Interesting.
But they didn't just separate. They actually created a very detailed plan for both companies to grow independently. Yeah, and they even formed partnerships to continue working together in certain areas.
Oh, so it's not always a complete severing of ties.
No, it's more like, they're still family, but they're living in separate houses.
Oh, exactly. They can still support each other.
And another example that I thought was really interesting was this biotech company. And they actually streamlined their operations before spinning off a non-core business unit.
Oh, wow. So they were really prepping for it.
Yeah, they were setting things up for success from the inside out.
That's smart. It's like getting your house in order before inviting guests over.
I like that analogy.
By doing that, by optimizing their operations beforehand, this biotech company ensured that both the remaining business and the newly independent entity were running as efficiently as possible.
So they're both in top shape, ready to hit the ground running.
Exactly, which gives them a competitive edge right out of the gate.
Right, they're not starting from scratch. They've already got that solid foundation.
Exactly, and it really highlights the importance of operational excellence.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, one thing I'm really curious about is the leadership aspect of all of this.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge factor.
Because the articles make it sound like the most successful spin-offs that they have, leaders who see beyond just the logistics of the separation.
Right. They have to be visionaries.
Yeah, it's almost like the difference between being a mechanic and being an architect.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
You need someone who understands the nuts and bolts of how to actually make the separation happen.
Right, the technical details.
But you also need someone who can envision the bigger picture and inspire others to buy into that vision.
Right, someone who can paint a picture of the future.
Exactly, and there's a great example of this with this pharma company that spun off their consumer health division.
Okay.
And they really went all in on crafting this really compelling story for investors.
So they were emphasizing the unique strengths of the spinoff.
Yeah, and the potential of the spinoff. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was about painting a picture of what this new company could become.
Exactly, and that's key for building confidence in investors.
So they're almost like storytellers as much as CEOs.
Absolutely. They need to convince investors that this new entity has a distinct identity and a bright future.
Okay, so we've talked about growth, we've talked about streamlined operations and visionary leadership, but what about the people?
Yeah,
What happens to all the employees when a company splits?
right. That's a good question.
Yeah.
You might think it creates this tug of war for talent.
Yeah, right. Who gets the best people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the best spin-offs, they actually view talent allocation as an opportunity rather than a battle.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
Right, exactly. They carefully assess, what skills and culture are needed for each company to really thrive.
So they're thinking long-term.
Yeah, exactly. And there's even a case in the articles where an industrials company intentionally moved its headquarters after a spin-off.
Wait, they moved their headquarters? Why would they do that?
They wanted to cultivate a brand new culture separate from the parent company.
So it was like a symbolic fresh start.
Exactly. It was a way to signal to employees, to investors, to the market that, hey, this spin-off is truly forging its own path.
Like, we're not just a mini version of the old company. We're something new and different.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Now, speaking of new and exciting things, let's talk about the Quarter article, because they have this whole list of their favorite spin-off stories.
Oh, fun.
And let me tell you, these are not your average corporate shakeups. We're talking about companies that have become absolute rock stars in their own right.
Okay, I'm excited to hear about this.
And what's really striking about the list is just the sheer range of industries that are represented.
Oh, wow. So it's not just limited to one specific sector.
No, it's all over the place. We've got everything from tech giants to luxury car brands.
It really shows that this strategy can work across so many different fields.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real testament to the adaptability and potential of spinoffs.
Okay, so are you ready to dive into some specifics?
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with one that I think everyone will recognize, PayPal.
Ooh, yeah, the payments giant.
Exactly. Yeah. Spun off from eBay back in 2015.
Right, right.
And they started with a market cap of $49 billion.
Okay, so already pretty substantial.
Oh, yeah. But today it's a whopping $82 billion.
Wow, that's incredible growth.
Yeah. And, I remember when this was all happening, activist investor Carl Icahn was really pushing for that split.
He was a big believer in PayPal.
Oh, yeah. He called PayPal a jewel that eBay was covering up.
Wow, and looking back, it seems like he was right on the money.
He really was.
Yeah.
And since the spinoff, PayPal hasn't just grown. They've also been really innovative.
Yeah, they've made some smart moves.
They acquired companies like Honey and Venmo.
Right, expanding into new areas.
Exactly. So they're not just resting on their laurels, they're actively expanding and evolving.
That's great to see.
Okay, so let's switch gears now and talk about a company with a little bit more of a winding corporate history, Kraft Foods.
Oh yeah, Kraft Food. They've been around forever.
They have. They were originally spun off from Altria Group back in 2007. And since then, they've gone through this whirlwind of mergers and acquisitions and even another spinoff.
Wow, talk about a corporate roller coaster.
Right, it's been a wild ride. But through it all, Kraft has managed to remain a real powerhouse in the food industry.
It's a testament to their adaptability.
Yeah, they've really weathered the storms.
Okay, so are you ready for a real success story? One that truly embodies that launch into greatness idea?
Oh, I am all ears. Let's hear it.
Okay, let's talk about Ferrari.
Ferrari. Okay, now that's a name everyone knows.
Exactly. Spun off from Fiat Chrysler Automobiles back in 2016.
Right?
And they made the strategic decision to separate this iconic luxury brand from FCA's more mass market offerings.
So they were really emphasizing that exclusivity.
Exactly. And boy, did it pay off. Ferrari's valuation has absolutely skyrocketed.
It's amazing how much a name like Ferrari is worth.
It really is. And their valuation has even surpassed that of its former parent company.
Wow. So they've outgrown the company that they were once a part of.
Exactly. It's a prime example of how focusing on a niche market and cultivating an exclusive brand can lead to incredible success.
So sometimes smaller is better.
It really can be. It challenges that assumption that bigger is always better.
Right, right. Sometimes it's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. Sometimes carving out a distinct identity and really catering to a specific audience can be a more powerful path to growth.
It's like they found their lane and they're just dominating it.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway from the Ferrari spinoff.
I think it's safe to say that that spinoff was a Grand Prix win for both companies.
Absolutely. A major victory for both sides. Yeah. It really is. And, it really highlights the power of brand recognition and the allure of exclusivity. But, it's not all about flashy cars and these big household names. The chord list actually includes some lesser-known companies that have seen incredible growth after spinning off.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, for example, there's Moody's Corporation.
Moody's. Oh, yeah, the credit rating agency.
Exactly. They were originally part of Dun & Bradstreet.
That's right. Yeah.
Spun off back in 2000, they started with a market cap of $5 billion.
Okay.
Fast forward to today, and they're at a staggering $85 billion.
Whoa. That's massive.
I know, right? It's crazy. That kind of long-term growth, it really showcases the potential of a well-executed spin-off.
I wonder if Dun & Bradstreet ever looks back and thinks, what if we'd stayed together?
Right. Maybe they do, but, maybe that separation was the best thing for both of them.
Yeah. Maybe they both needed that space to really reach their full potential.
It's like two plants sharing the same pot.
Okay.
They might both be healthy, but they'll grow much stronger if they each have their own space.
Right. To spread out their roots.
Exactly. And speaking of shaking things up, let's talk about General Electric.
Oh, yeah. GE. That was a big one.
Huge. They decided to split into 3 independent companies: GE Healthcare, GE Vernova, and GE Aerospace.
Yeah, that was a massive undertaking.
Oh, it was one of the biggest corporate separations we've seen in recent years.
So what were the driving forces behind that decision? Why did they decide to do that?
Well, GE had become this sprawling conglomerate.
Right, they were in everything.
They had businesses in healthcare, energy, aviation, and more. And, it became clear that these different businesses, they had unique needs.
Right, like different growth trajectories?
Exactly. And by separating them, each company could really focus on its core strengths and pursue opportunities more aggressively.
So it was kind of a case of, we're too big, let's right size for success.
Exactly. Break it down into more manageable chunks.
So how's it worked out for them so far?
Well, so far, so good. GE Healthcare was the first to spin off in 2023.
Okay.
They focus on medical technology and diagnostics.
Right.
And they started with a market cap of $28 billion. Today, it's at $41 billion.
Wow, so they've seen significant growth.
Definitely. And then there's GE Vernova.
GE Vernova, what do they do?
They encompass all of GE's energy businesses.
Oh, okay.
And they were spun off in 2024 with a market cap of $38 billion. Now they're at a whopping $76 billion.
That's incredible. So both spinoffs have really taken off.
Yeah. It's a clear sign that these strategic separations can unlock a lot of value.
Right. It's not just about splitting assets. It's about creating a structure where each business can really thrive.
Exactly. Give them the freedom to grow.
These spinoffs, they're really starting to feel like corporate evolution in action.
Corporate evolution? What do you mean?
Like, those nature documentaries where you see one species branching off and creating a whole new lineage?
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
They're adapting to changing environments and creating new opportunities.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights the fact that spin-offs aren't just about financial engineering.
Right, it's bigger than that.
They're about responding to market dynamics, anticipating future trends, and positioning companies for long-term success.
It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. Stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so we've delved into some really fascinating examples from the Quarter article. It's amazing to see just how diverse the world of spinoffs is and how much value they can create. But I want to talk about the Fortune article for a second because they bring up some interesting cases as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The Fortune article highlights some spinoffs that might be a little less familiar to our listeners, but are still very noteworthy.
Okay, let's hear about them.
For example, remember Time Warner?
Time Warner, of course.
They spun off Time Inc., their magazine publishing arm.
Oh, yeah, that was a big deal in the media world.
It was, and it felt like a real sign of the times, with print media struggling to adapt to the digital age.
Yeah, everything's going online.
Exactly. And it was a classic case of a company adapting to a changing landscape and recognizing that certain businesses might be better off on their own.
So it's not always about growth, it's sometimes about survival as well.
Exactly. Making tough decisions to ensure the long-term health of both the parent company and the spin-off.
So sometimes you have to let go to move forward? That's right.
And speaking of tough decisions, How about Energizer spinning off their personal care division?
Energizer, like the battery company.
Yep, the same one. They spun off their personal care division, which included brands like Schick razors.
Wait, so a battery company was making razors?
Yeah, it seems strange, right?
It does. I never would have guessed that.
But it's a good reminder that even companies known for these iconic products sometimes need to streamline their operations and focus on their core competencies.
Right, like stick to what you know.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to let go of certain things, even if they've been part of your identity for a long time, to really thrive.
Okay, are you ready for a real head scratcher?
Hit me with it.
Coach, the luxury handbag maker,
Okay.
was originally spun off from Sara Lee, the frozen baked goods company.
Wait, what? That's crazy. What do handbags and frozen waffles have in common?
I know, right? It's the most unexpected pairing. But hey, it worked out for them.
It just goes to show you that spin-offs can happen in the most surprising places.
And sometimes those unexpected combinations can lead to huge success.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right formula.
Okay, speaking of unexpected combinations, how about McDonald's spinning off Chipotle?
Oh, yeah. The fast casual Mexican chain.
Yep, and that's got to be one of the most successful spin-offs in restaurant history.
I think you're right. Chipotle has absolutely exploded in popularity since going independent.
They really tapped into that desire for fresh, customizable food.
And they built a brand that really resonates with younger generations.
It's a testament to the fact that sometimes a spin-off can really unleash a company's true potential.
Right. By freeing Chipotle from the constraints of the McDonald's empire, they were able to innovate and establish their own unique identity.
Okay, back to the world of media giants.
Right.
CBS and Viacom.
Yeah, what about them?
Well, after a brief period of being merged, they decided to part ways once again.
Oh, wow. So they got back together and then broke up again.
It just highlights how the corporate world is constantly in flux.
Right, mergers, acquisitions, spin-offs, it's all part of this dynamic ecosystem.
It's like a corporate dance with partners coming together and separating as the music changes.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of corporate dance partners, there's also Mondelez and Kraft.
Oh yeah, they split their snack food empire.
Exactly, into two separate companies.
It's hard to imagine a world where Oreos and Triscuits aren't part of the same family.
I know, right? But it seems to have worked out well for both of them.
Yeah, they both continue to innovate and expand their product lines.
It shows that sometimes even seemingly inseparable brands can benefit from going their separate ways.
Right. Sometimes you need that space to breathe.
It allows them to focus on their specific markets and cater to their target audiences more effectively.
And last but not least, let's not forget the Murdoch media empire.
Ah, yes, the media mogul.
News Corp spun off its entertainment and satellite television business, creating 21st Century Fox.
That was a strategic move for sure. They wanted to separate the high-growth entertainment division, which included things like the Fox Movie Studio and cable networks, from the struggling publishing arm, which included the Wall Street Journal.
So it's kind of a way to protect their more valuable assets.
Exactly. By separating the struggling publishing business, they were able to shield their more profitable ventures from potential losses.
So spin-offs can be a way to safeguard the future of a company.
Absolutely. It's about making strategic decisions to ensure long-term success.
Well, all of these examples, they really paint a picture of spin-offs as this dynamic and evolving part of the business world.
They're not just about corporate restructuring. They're about responding to market trends, adapting to changing consumer demands, and ultimately striving for greater success.
It's like a constant game of chess with companies making these strategic moves to try and gain an advantage.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about strategy and anticipating your opponent's next move.
So after looking at all these examples, what are some of the common threads that run through the successful spin-offs? Like, what are the key ingredients that really set them apart?
That's a great question, and based on what we've seen today and the research that we've looked at, it seems like successful spin-offs tend to have a few things in common.
Okay.
First, they have a clear growth strategy.
Right. They know where they're going.
Exactly. It's not enough to just separate both the parent company and the spin-off. Need a compelling vision for how they will grow independently.
Like they each need their own GPS system guiding them toward success.
Exactly. And they also need strong leadership.
Right. Someone to steer the ship.
Exactly. Leaders who can not only manage the complexities of the separation, but also inspire their teams and build a new culture. Remember that example of the industrials company that moved its headquarters?
Oh, yeah. That was a bold move.
It showed a real commitment to creating a distinct identity for the spinoff.
And finally, I guess successful spinoffs, they have to be very intentional about talent allocation.
Oh, absolutely. They don't just divide up the workforce randomly. They carefully assess what skills and expertise are needed for each company to succeed, and they make sure the right people are in the right roles.
So it's about optimizing both businesses for the future.
Precisely. And sometimes it involves making tough decisions like letting go of certain businesses or brands that no longer align with the company's core strategy.
So it sounds like successful spin-offs, they require this balance of strategic vision, strong leadership, and careful planning.
Absolutely. It's not a simple formula, and there's no guarantee of success.
Right. There are no guarantees in the business world.
But by understanding the key factors that contribute to positive outcomes, investors and observers can make more informed decisions about which spin-offs to watch and which ones to approach with caution.
That's a good point. Not all spin-offs are created equal.
Definitely not. Some are definitely riskier than others.
So what are some of the things that might signal that a spin-off is headed for trouble? Like, what are some red flags to watch out for?
Well, one of the biggest red flags is a lack of a clear strategy. If a company can't articulate why it's spinning off a particular business and how that business will succeed on its own, that's definitely a cause for concern.
It's like setting off on a road trip without a map.
Exactly. You might end up somewhere interesting, but you're probably going to get lost along the way.
Another red flag, I imagine, is a lack of strong leadership.
Oh, absolutely. A spinoff needs a dedicated team with the experience and the vision to guide it through this transition and establish a new identity.
It's like they need a captain who can steer the ship through those uncharted waters.
Exactly. And finally, I'd say a lack of focus on talent is a big warning sign.
Right. The people are the most important asset.
They are, and if a company doesn't carefully consider the skills and experience needed to run the spinoff effectively, it's setting itself up for failure.
So it sounds like navigating the world of spinoffs, it's a bit like sailing a ship in unpredictable waters.
That's a great analogy.
You need a skilled captain, a sturdy vessel, a good map, but you also need to be prepared for unexpected storms.
You said it. And it highlights the importance of flexibility and adaptability.
Right, being able to adjust to changing conditions.
Exactly. Companies that can adjust to changing conditions and make those course corrections along the way, they're more likely to weather those storms and reach their destination.
And that destination, ideally, is a place where both the parent company and the spinoff are thriving.
Exactly. A win-win scenario where everyone comes out ahead.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the motivations behind spinoffs, the factors that contribute to their success, the potential pitfalls to avoid.
We've seen how spinoffs can unlock value, create new opportunities, and even reshape entire industries.
But, we haven't talked much about the impact of spinoffs on everyday people, like our listeners.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, why should someone who's not a CEO or a Wall Street investor care about all of this?
That's a great question. And the truth is, spinoffs, they can have a ripple effect that extends far beyond the boardroom.
So it's not just a corporate game.
Exactly. They can create jobs, they can introduce new products and services, and they can even impact the overall economy.
So it's about real-world consequences that touch all of our lives.
Absolutely. Take the example of PayPal that we talked about earlier, their spinoff from eBay. It not only created this successful fintech giant, but it also paved the way for a whole new wave of digital payment solutions.
Right. It changed the way we shop and bank.
Exactly. It's amazing to think about how something that started as a corporate decision can end up having such a profound impact on our daily lives.
It really is. And it's not just about the products and services that we use. Spinoffs can also create jobs.
Oh, absolutely. When companies expand into new markets or develop new technologies, they often need to hire more employees, which can boost local economies and create opportunities for people.
So it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real people's livelihoods.
Exactly. And let's not forget the impact on innovation.
Right, new ideas and invention.
Exactly. When companies spin off certain businesses, it can free them up to focus on research and development, which can lead to breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and other fields.
So spinoffs can actually be a catalyst for progress.
They can, pushing the boundaries of what's possible and creating a better future for everyone.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Spinoffs aren't just about corporate restructuring. They're about creating a more dynamic and innovative business landscape that ultimately benefits us all.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to grow is to let go, to embrace change, and to create new opportunities for success.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've dived pretty deep into the world of spinoffs today.
We have. We've explored the motivations, the factors that contribute to success, the potential pitfalls to avoid.
We've seen how they can unlock value, create new opportunities, and even reshape entire industries.
It's been a fascinating journey.
But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to the Fortune article for a moment because they mentioned a few more spin-offs that I think are worth highlighting just to really showcase the sheer breadth of this phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are so many great examples out there.
So remember Agilent Technologies.
Agilent Technologies. That name rings a bell, but I can't quite place it.
They were spun off from Hewlett-Packard, the tech giant, back in 1999.
Oh, HP, right.
And essentially they took all of HP's non-computing products, things like chemical analysis equipment, medical diagnostics, electronic measurement tools, and they created this whole new company focused on those areas.
So they basically carved out a niche for themselves within the tech world.
Exactly, and it's a great illustration of how spin-offs can create these hyper-focused businesses that have the agility to really innovate.
Right. It's about recognizing that sometimes less is more.
So if we zoom out and look at the big picture, what's the key takeaway here? What's the so what for our listeners?
The so what? Well, I think the key takeaway is that spin-offs, when done right, they're not just corporate restructuring. They're powerful engines for growth and innovation.
Right. They can reshape industries, create new products and services, and even impact our daily lives.
Exactly. And it's something that affects us all, even if we don't work in the corporate world.
So it's not just about boardrooms and stock prices. It's about real-world impact.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that what seems like an inseparable company today might surprise us with a spin-off tomorrow.
So it's all about keeping an eye on the market and being ready for the unexpected.
Exactly. You never know what's going to happen next.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
I hope so. It's a fascinating topic.
And hopefully they've gained a new appreciation for the complexities and potential of spin-offs.
It's not just about breaking up companies. It's about creating a more vibrant and competitive business landscape that ultimately benefits everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, what's that?
The next time you see a headline about a company spinning off one of its businesses, don't just skim past it.
Okay.
Take a moment to consider the potential implications. Ask yourself, what are the strategic motivations behind this move? Could this spin-off unlock hidden value and lead to new innovations? Could it even create new opportunities for me?
Those are great questions to ask yourself. It encourages a more critical and engaged way of looking at the business world.
Exactly. And for those of you who want to explore the world of spin-offs in even more depth, I highly recommend checking out the Court website.
Oh, yes. Their Edge newsletter is fantastic.
They got all the data, all the insights, and even a bit of humor to make learning about finance fun and engaging.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep an eye out for those surprising corporate shakeups that can change the game entirely.
Until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah.
It's like they said, we're going to focus on this and be the best at it.
Exactly. And it worked. Agilent became a leader in their field, proving that sometimes it's better to specialize than try to be everything to everyone.
So it's almost like a spin-off can help a company find its true calling.
Yeah, I like that, finding its true calling, because it's not about failing. It's about realizing that a certain business might just do better on its own.
Right. It needs that freedom to spread its wings.
Exactly. Unburdened by maybe the structure or priorities of a larger company.
It's like letting a butterfly out of its cocoon.
There you go. A perfect analogy.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about why companies do spin-offs, what makes them successful, and what to watch out for.
Yeah, we've seen how they can really shake things up in industries, lead to new innovations, even create jobs.
But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that spin-offs, when done right, can be these engines for growth.
Right.
But what about the flip side? What are some red flags that might signal a spin-off is headed for trouble?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest warning signs is a lack of a clear strategy. If a company can't explain why they're spinning off a business and how that business is going to succeed on its own, that's definitely a red flag.
It's like setting off on a journey with no destination in mind.
Exactly. You're just wandering aimlessly.
Another red flag, I imagine, is if there's no strong leadership.
Oh, absolutely. A spinoff needs a dedicated team, a team with experience and vision to guide it through the transition and build a new identity.
They need someone at the helm, someone to steer the ship.
Exactly. And finally, I'd say a lack of focus on talent. That's a big warning sign.
Right, because the people are ultimately what make or break a company.
They really are. If a company isn't thinking carefully about the skills and experience needed to run the spinoff effectively, it's setting itself up for failure.
So it sounds like there's a lot that goes into making a spin-off successful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not a guaranteed win.
It's like a delicate dance.
It is. It takes strategy, leadership talent, and a bit of luck.
And even then, there are no guarantees.
Right. The business world is unpredictable.
But I think our listeners now have a much better understanding of how spin-offs work, what to look for, and why they matter.
Hopefully they've gone from seeing them as just these corporate divorces to seeing them as these potential catalysts for positive change.
Right, because they can create new businesses, new jobs, new innovations that ultimately benefit everyone.
Exactly. It's about creating a more dynamic and exciting business landscape.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
All right, I like it.
The next time you see a headline about a company spinning off a business, don't just ignore it.
Okay.
Really think about it. What does it mean? What are the implications? Could this spin-off create something amazing? Could it even create opportunities for you?
Those are great questions to ask. It gets people thinking critically about the business world.
And if you want to learn more about spin-offs and other fascinating financial happenings, I highly recommend checking out the Quarter website.
Oh, yes. Their Edge newsletter is a fantastic resource.
They break down complex topics in a way that's easy to understand and even a little bit fun.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious about the world of business.
And until next time, happy exploring.